I mean, I think in Shadows in Mind, me and Mark Schwab, our director, we sat around, spent a lot of time on the phone, kind of discussing prior to the shoot. We were able to get together in person, and we really just wanted to find a striking visual identity, for the film. We wanted the world to kind of be wrapped in, shadows, kind of mimicking the title of the movie, but also kind of showing the kind of the hidden side of every character. And so it was just one of those fun approaches. So one of the shows we kind of referenced that we really liked the look of was The Night Of, which was a brilliant HBO show. We both were fans of the look of that show. And so it was just trying to find a way to kind of recreate some of those looks and then incorporate kind of our own feel to the visual identity. When I read the script for the first time, that's what really gravitated me towards this film. So I get a lot of scripts that kind of come my way, and a lot of times when I read them, I can't visualize the story in my head, and that's kind of a red flag to me if I can't see the film, before we've made it. And with Shadows in Mind, it was completely different. I mean, I read the script and it flew by for one. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how quickly kind of a couple hours went by reading the script. I felt like I was reading for like 20 minutes, and then I realized I was, at the conclusion, which was fantastic. But beyond that, just the whole time I was reading, I could see every scene in my head. I knew what I wanted it to look like. I had this whole world going on in my mind, and so that just made me super excited to be a part of the project. I think for the director of photography, I mean, it's just, kind of being the right hand of the director. I mean, I look at myself as like the paintbrush of the director's imagination. Really, it's one of those hard things, I think, as a director of photography. I think a lot of people struggle with is, for a director, especially a director like, Mark, who's written this script. They have the story in their mind. Like, they see these characters, they see this world already, and it's trying to find a way to crack open their mind and kind of get in there and see what that looks like, and then find a way to actually make that a reality, which is, always fun and challenging. But that's kind of my job, is to almost, find a way to see what my director sees in their head and then bring that to life. In the film's look, in Shadow of the Mind's look, I was really inspired by, like I said, shows like The Night Of, I thought were brilliant shows, or was a brilliant show that kind of, showcased the style we wanted to do. Other shows that I kind of, tried to mimic a little bit were The Leftovers, which I thought was a brilliant visually shot show. I'm so sad that that show ended after 3 seasons. I feel like all the shows that I like end very quickly because artistically, like, I can gravitate towards it, but I feel like the regular viewing audience doesn't have or see what I'm seeing, and so to them they just can't go along with it. For me, I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's a lot of playing with that a little bit. We definitely used a lot of pop colors, and a lot of that came from things like Neon Demon, which is a very new one from Nicholas Wynn Refn, which I thought was great. But that goes all the way back to like, Suspiria days, where it was using those heavy, vibrant reds and blues and that oversaturation in some of this world that kind of shows us that it feels more like a fantasy, even though it's in reality. And it's kind of that idea that this whole story is told through the perspective of one character. And so, reality to everybody is your own perception of reality. It's not a real thing. The way I see the world is completely different than the way somebody else sees the world. And so that was really fun in this, kind of story to kind of determine for our main character, Danny, what his world looked like, what it looked like when he was, in his relationship and he had friends and a community, and what it was like when he was alone and he didn't have that. And so we kind of take that journey with him, where his world before he has anybody and he's all alone is very muted, it's very desaturated, it's very, lonely. And the more and more he kind of travels down this rabbit hole with this, new boyfriend and, this new boyfriend's group of friends, all of a sudden that world becomes colorful and becomes poppy, and he starts traveling to a place he doesn't ever think he would go to, but the beauty of it is almost alluring and kind of leads him in that direction. Mark was so great. First off, I mean, Mark is God. He's such a grounded, like humble guy. It's so crazy because it's one of those weird things for me as a director of photography. I get to read somebody's work, and there's I'm sure there's that fear with everybody. You send out your work, you want somebody to read it, you want somebody to get the vision, and you hope they connect with it. But there's that fear that maybe they don't. Maybe, they're gonna not like it, and you have to kind of take that rejection. And so with Mark, it was like I read the script and I was so in love with the story, and I wanted to be a part of it so bad, and he wanted me to be a part of it so bad. So it was kind of like this weird thing where I was so excited to be a part of it, but he was so excited for me to be a part of it that I didn't know who was courting who kind of in the process a little bit, because he's so just grounded and humble that he didn't understand the brilliance in his work, But I think that's the true testament to any artist. I mean, I feel as an artist, when you're creating, if you ever get to that point in your work where you feel like you've, created a masterpiece, then there's nowhere to go but down from there. It's almost time to just call it quits, because then you'll just be disappointed in every project after that. So I think as an artist, you always need to feel as though your best work, your masterpiece is still yet to come. So you're always pursuing that. And even though the audience might disagree and say that everything you've done is a masterpiece, you need to believe there's still more you can offer. And in Mark, I see that so much that, in all of his previous work that I was able to watch that I thought was great, in working with him on the set, it's just like there's a brilliance to him. He's kind of born to do this, but it's that idea that he still is very grounded in, he at times almost feels like he's unworthy of sitting in that chair, and he's totally deserving of it. He understands it so well. He sees the vision so well, and it's just, working with somebody like that was just one of those things. I mean, we would, sit down, we'd have these long shoot nights, and then the next morning we would get together for coffee and just discuss the previous night, discuss our day going forward. And he was just so thankful the whole entire time. And he didn't realize how excited I was and how thankful I was. So it was just this, great experience. I think there's a couple things. One, this is an LGBT movie, and in my career now, this is my third LGBT feature film. I've also done 2 LGBT short films. And both those short films went on to have great festival success. And the features themselves, what I've seen is, in the LGBT community, everybody's trying to create their own work, but the hard part is the production value sometimes falters in that, and I think there's even some resistance in that a little bit. I think reaching out to people and trying to get an LGBT feature or film made is a little bit more difficult, because that subject matter to some is still taboo, which I think is awful. But that's the world we live in right now, and that world is slowly changing, but it will. So I think somewhere along the way with these with making a film like this, that LGBT value and being able to, bring that to life, I think it's such a great thing, because we brought a real Hollywood production value to it. So when you watch this movie, it's not going to look any different. It's not going to look lower budget, even though we ran on a shoestring budget. It doesn't look that way. You're going to put it against anything you see in a theater and realize that we're on the same level, that we went for it. So I think, that's a great thing. Beyond that, the story is, a slow burn, but the payoff is, I don't want to say any words that might give it away and ruin what that is, but the payoff's worth it. I mean, it's one of those movies where you have the slow burn and you're just thinking the whole time you're watching it, this has got to go somewhere. I know when I read the script, that's what I was thinking the whole time I was reading the script was, this better go somewhere. There was so much setup that I was like, if this has just one of those little pops of an ending and not a huge explosion, I'm going to be bummed out, because this film has so much build that this moment needs to be great, or you're going to just upset me when I get to the script and I'm going to throw it across my room. And it didn't. It had that oomph at the end of it. And so I think, people watching this, it's one of those things, Mark is creating a world, and Danny's world in this film, and he puts in the time to give you that character development. He puts in the time for you to understand the character, before the craziness starts to unfold, so you can see why somebody would go through this, and also why they would react the way they do. And I think that's an important thing, is understanding Danny enough to understand how Danny gets to where he ends up.